It's my first video in a while, and I'm doing it on quite an old game now, a game that's nearly 2 months old. But I just wanted to show you the prep for and a game itself that I'm quite proud of. So, for the Spanish Rooms PL, week 1 in UU was up against Avarice, who is a very good tournament player, but he's essentially pretty notorious for A, teams that are quite strange and out there, and B, teams that are quite cheesy, the kind of hyper offenses that are a bit gimmicky or inconsistent, but if you play them right or get them into the right matchup, then they'll just win without very much that the opponent is able to do into it. And so prep-wise, I decided that I wanted to essentially lean into that and try and make my own hyper offense that would be good against opposing hyper offenses. And so the idea that I settled on, I'll just open up one of these teams to show you, is that I went with Gyarados and also Scizor. And the point of those two is that both of them are mons that are really hard for opposing offensive teams to deal with if they're able to get set up. But their problem is that it can be quite difficult for them to set up because a good offense, probably most of the things are going to outspeed and threaten those mons. And so I needed a way to engineer a situation that they can set up more comfortably. And so to do that, I took inspiration from a team that was used by Team UK in the World Cup in OU, which was a hyper offense with Choice Scarf Golden Go, who carried random memento, which is very unusual for Golden Go, to try and catch the opponent out and generate a free turn or a situation where your hyper offense threats are going to be able to set up. And so to kind of transcribe that to UU, I went Gyarados plus Scizor are the threats that I want to let in. And the most surprising memento that I can think of is on Zoroark-H, because not only does it not usually run memento, but if I play my cards right, then I can catch Avarice out even more if I successfully fool him and he doesn't realise that I'm a Zoroark, never mind that I'm gonna try and memento. So that was the gist of the team, and I ended up with 2 variants of it. So the first one that we're in now is one where the Zoroark is heavy duty boots and the Choice Scarfer is instead Cleavor. And the point of Zoroark being boots is that it gives you a lot more freedom on who you want to impersonate with illusion, because if you're not boots and you take 12% from rocks, then suddenly you can't be Iron Tread, you can't be Gyarados, you can't be Cleavor, you can't be Thundurus, you can only be Scizor. And so that kind of limits your options for getting off the surprise memento. But then there's an advantage to the Choice Scarf version, which is that if you are still, despite not being boots, able to get off your surprise with the Zoroark, then I'm more likely to be able to get the memento, especially if something on Avarice's team has already set up and is fast, because the faster I am, the more likely it is that I get to do my memento. And so that's what we've got to balance in deciding which team to go for. And the other advantage to Zoroark with a Choice Scarf is that if it turns out to be a game where memento isn't so good, then I can at least trick something, and Zoroark can still contribute that way. And my team were all generally advocating for Zoroark to be boots, and this makes a lot of sense because every other Mon on my team could feasibly be boots. And so it suddenly gets really hard for Avarice to read into if I'm a Zoroark or not through the hazard situation if I'm not able to keep my hazards up. But I kind of had this gut feeling of I want to be Choice Scarf for the reasons that I've already mentioned, of the tricking something and the just getting it off faster, because I kind of felt that, okay, being Choice Scarf kind of pigeonholes me into pretending to be Scizor, but I don't think that's really a problem. I think that I can go into the game knowing I'm almost definitely gonna choose Scizor for my illusion. I think that I can work with that. And then I also just liked Kleavor being Focus Sash to guarantee me my hazard. That felt nice too. But I go with the one that I was feeling in the end over the one that my teammates were suggesting. And so I load into this. We see that Avarice is bringing not some kind of mental wacky hyper offense, but what he is bringing is Belly Bolt. And for anyone not in the know, Belly Bolt is a very physically defensive Mon who also has the static ability. And when I saw that my Gyarados plus Scizor hyper offense team had loaded into a Belly Bolt, I was very close to just drop kicking my laptop out the window. But on maintaining the composure to not do that, what I did see that was quite nice is that my Zoroark gives me a bit of an out against the Belly Bolt. I immediately knew that I have to find a way to get the drop on the Belly Bolt and get it tricked so that it's stuck with a Choice Scarf, so that it can't just sit on my Gyarados and my Scizor forever. Because if I'm not able to do that, then my Gyarados is Terra Blast and not Earthquake. It would take something really silly like several Waterfall flinches and not getting staticked, or that kind of ridiculousness, to make my way past the Belly. And just my win cons don't work until they can break past it. So I'm not feeling good loading into this, but I know what I have to do. And the other thing about finding an opportunity to get the Belly Bolt tricked is that I've got to go into quote-unquote Scizor, who invites in the Belly, but I've got to do that in a way that isn't suspicious, right? Like, I need to go into Scizor at a time that going into Scizor makes sense, and not just random send in Scizor on the Belly because Avarice isn't stupid, he'd know. And so that's that. That's my feeling going in. We leave Kleavor, rocks are going up, except they're not because they miss. That's quite sad. And the miss just kind of loses me a turn of tempo. I could have had a U-turn on the rocks. But we see the quite aggressive Tornadus, so I've no reason to go for that again. Thunderous. And this is just kind of feeling each other out. I managed to catch the Ursaluna with a Grass Knot, which I wasn't really expecting. It was more of a just kind of optimistic Grass Knot than anything. But in comes the big threat, the Belly. And Grass Knot does a lot, but I don't 1v1 it. And I just go into my treads to get my spin. Because I'm still thinking at this point, well, if I want to win with Gyarados, I've got to get the spin, and Avarice just stays in, and I was kind of... Maybe I could have Earthquaked here, but my thinking was he knows how important the Belly is, you don't want to risk it, but at the same time, he does get loads of damage on this, and he can live an Earthquake and find an opportunity to heal later. And then on this turn, he just gets me. I should have knocked here, because even if he did stay in, then getting the Belly knocked and taking its boots and making it take 12 every time would have been really useful. But I don't, and so I just have to sack my treads. Which lets in my Thunderous, who, with the weakened Ursaluna, gets a really free Volt Switch. So I Volt out, And here, we got to decide who to go into. And my feeling is that the longer that I let this game go on, the worse it is for me, because my team has no longevity. So I decide that I'm going to try and look like a different Scizor to what I am, because I'm just a Swords Dance setup endgame cleaner Scizor. But I want to try and make it look like I'm a U-turn Scizor. I want to just come in so that I can U-turn out on whatever you send in. And it does kind of work, because Scizor of that kind matches up favourably into the Hooper, into the Zarude. The Ursaluna is weak enough that you can kill it. The Tinkaton isn't doing loads. The only real switch into that is the Belly Bolt. So I go into Scizor, and surely enough, here comes the Belly Bolt, and I get the trick. Discharge does a lot. It paralyzes me. My Zoroark is pretty much just out of the picture now, but that is 100% worth it. Like, I've still got the sack with this cropped Zoroark, and the paralysis is a bit sad, but I would have just let the Zoroark die to get that trick. This is the best trade ever for me, because now my win cons are actually able to win. And so Luna comes in as I just go Kleavor, because my feeling at this point is it's the mon that I value the least. I don't really care if you want to discharge into it again, whereas if you do want to switch, which you probably do, then whatever, don't care about my Kleavor, chilling. And so the Belly's going to come back in, and when it's taking rocks and it's taking U-turn, and I can go into things that threaten it, it's already getting into range of anything I need, as we see another very aggressive Avarice play here, as he, in order to preserve the sack, just goes, why would I risk another Focus Blast? I'll Grass Knot. And he's right, and from that he's able to just get my Zoroark. Kleavor back in, and at this point I've almost won. I've just kind of got a little bit left to do, and it'd take a pretty bad choke of some description from me to lose it from here. And as long-time viewers of the channel will know, I do choke things, so that's not entirely out of the question. But with that Thunderbolt, I've got the damage on Hooper for the Scizor Bullet Punch to kill. And now we can go into the real Scizor, who is able to just set up a Swords Dance unimpeded. The best that Avarice could do is knock off, so he doesn't even really try. And he just encores fishing for a choke of me trying to go for a random extra Swords Dance that I don't need. And I mercifully do not do that, and he forfeits, and I win. So that was that game, and my prep worked perfectly. If I hadn't been Trick Zoroark, that would have been a really, really tough game for me. But thankfully I was, and thankfully I was able to get the belly tricked, and that was that. Thanks for watching, bye.